Hello everyone, welcome to the editorial analysis of the Shankar IAS Academy brought to you by the Sensitization team. There are two articles for discussion. First article titled Free and Fair Elections from the Hindu discusses about the appointment process of the Chief Election Commissioners and the Election Commissioners in its recent 2023 bill. Next article titled Good Food Better Bill from the Indian Express discusses about the presence of patriarchy all around in our routine and how it affects women in all of their multi-sectoral presence, which can be both economic, social, cultural, and in our own households. So in light of this article, let us see the discussion for the articles and a main question along with it. Now look into the article, a process where free and fair elections will be a casualty. So here it talks about the appointment of CEC, that is the Chief Election Commissioner, and the Election Commissioners. So for the appointment, the Chief Election Commissioner and other election commissioners appointment, conditions of service and term of office bill 2023 enacted by the Parliament under Article 324 clause 5 of the Constitution deals with the appointment of Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioner. So we all know that Article 324 discusses about the power of Election Commission. So here the article mainly discusses about how this bill 2023 appoints the Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioner with a recommendation by a high-powered committee. So this high-powered committee comprises of Prime Minister, the leader of opposition party in the Lok Sabha, and by the CJI. So here we can see high power committee comprises Prime Minister, the leader of opposition LOP in the Lok Sabha, and Chief Justice of India. So before this bill, the election of the Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioner is solely done by the President of India in recommendation of the Prime Minister. Here we can see, as in the past, the CEC and ECs were always appointed by the President of India on the recommendations of the Prime Minister. So this method of appointment had a full focus on the executive power. So here it was the executive power who had almost all the rights, constitutional rights to appoint the CEC and EC. So here this was seen as a bias towards appointing the members of the post. So recently in 2023, this election process was changed by having a high powered committee where it comprises Prime Minister, leader of opposition, and CJ. Now the recent update in this act is in 2023 bill, here instead of the CGI, they have been replaced with a cabinet minister to be nominated by the Prime Minister, who chairs the 3-member committee. So here instead of CJ, it is the cabinet minister all again. So now again it reinforces the power of executive in the in the election of the CEC and EC. So here again it questions the importance of having free and fair elections, and it also has the importance of how it will have implications on having a free and fair appointment process in itself. So in light of this article, let us see a question and we will move on to the format. Critically analyze the Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commissioners Bill 2023. How does it impact the independence of the Election Commission of India and the democratic process in the country? Now let us see the key features of the bill. Here it comprises a selection committee composition where the Chief Justice of India is being replaced by a cabinet minister who is nominated by the Prime Minister. Then there is 3-member committee. PM would be the chairperson, a leader of opposition in Lok Sabha, and a union minister. Now this, along with the selection committee, there is another committee called search committee. Here it is headed by the law minister, including 2 senior bureaucrats. So here they prepare a panel of 5 names for the selection committee to select. Now looking into the security of the tenure, the CEC and ECs are having 6 years of tenure or until the age of 65, whichever is earlier. Now looking in the changes in removal process, here removal process for the ECs is bit less stringent than the CEC. Here it raises concerns over the executive influence all again. Now let us see concerns over the new law. First, it is a threat to the independence. So the Election Commission of India ensures free and fair elections, which is under the Article 324, and its independence has been hindered. Here, the Supreme Court in 2023 stressed an independent selection process. So having a cabinet minister in the committee can compromise this objective and can compromise the whole neutrality of selecting the members of the Election Commission of India, having its threat to its own independence in itself. Looking into conflict of interest and executive control, here the cabinet minister follows the prime minister's decision as they have been recommended by the prime minister in itself. So it affects the objectivity on the selection process. Here government majority in the committee allows control over the appointments because of the presence of the cabinet minister. Supreme Court emphasized CEC and EC should be impartial and competent, but this presence or this change can have a larger impact on the government majority as well as in the election process in itself. Next is weakening the checks and balances. So we all know the concept of checks and balances. Here, removal of the CGI, that is the whole judiciary in a selection process, it eliminates a judicial oversight and it reduces transparency and ultimately it weakens the democracy. Looking into constitutional and legal issues, here the executive dominance can violate Article 14 and Article 324. We all know equality before law, and Article 324 it talks about the powers of the ECI. So here again the before law of 2023 was solely having executive power. Now in the presence of removing the CG and bringing in the cabinet minister, it again reinforces this executive dominance as they are recommended by the prime minister. So again it has the bias of the government in itself. So no independent merit assessment mechanism can be involved as the CGA would not be present for the transparency level. So unlike the for example, unlike the Central Vigilance Commission, here it lacks judicial members. Looking into a factor of potential for electoral manipulation, here a government-backed ECI can favor the ruling party. So, having members of the cabinet minister appointed by the PM, whose government is a ruling party, it can have its backup on the ECA and can favor the ruling party ultimately and hindering the election results in itself. For example, we can take Pakistan or Russia, where they shows the risk of how a government controlled election bodies can influence. Now looking into way forward, first is restoring judicial oversight. So there is a need of the CGI reconsidering their position in the selection panel. Ultimately, it ensures fair representation from the executive, legislature and judiciary. So all of these three important pillars have been in the selection process. Next is strengthening appointment mechanisms. Here there needs to be public disclosure of the shortlisted candidates. So this can be possible if the CGI is present. Multi-stakeholder approach, where the parliament as well as an independent commission is being included rather than high-powered commission. Ensuring financial and functional independence. A financial autonomy which is similar to the judiciary brings in transparency and accountability. Here bringing in clear tenure and removal guidances to prevent undue influences can help in the smooth functioning of the ECI and CEC in itself. And having judicial review and public accountability. Supreme Court have to review to ensure constitutional alignment where along with the 324 article, here the action also aligns with the constitutional expectations, and the civil society need to have their engagement to the electoral integrity forums. So involving other public stakeholders, other multi-stakeholders can bring in more efficiency and having transparency and having public accountability. So the next article here titled Good Food Bitter Bill. So here basically the article discusses about the gender roles and the power imbalances which is very prevalent in this patriarchal society, and how often men dictate but avoid the household work, whereas it's the women who is almost are responsible with the household work, and how that household work is being undervalued and it's been overmined. So in light of the movie Mrs., it's a official Hindi remake of the Malayalam movie called the Great Indian Kitchen. So I hope most of the people are aware of the film. So the article basically through the lens of that film, it discusses about different uh, politics and lot of debate as well as lot of discourses around the patriarchy as well as the role of women in all spheres. So let's see a mains question for it. Discuss the impact of patriarchal norms on gender roles in India with a focus on unpaid domestic work and power dynamics in families. So suggest policy measures to promote gender equality. So first let us see gender roles and patriarchy, their impact and solutions. Looking into traditional gender norms, here household duties are more being held upon on women, where they stand as a burden for the women even though they don't have any expectations out of it, and most of the economic roles are designated to the men. So here there's a clear difference on how women should behave and how men should behave. So according to the National Family Health Survey of 5 2020 to 21, here the report says that the 32% of women are part of the household decisions. So even though house or a home, it's part of two people, here we can see how there is a burden on in one side of gender itself. So ultimately it reinforces inequality. One of the major reason would be the patriarchal family structures. Here men are seen to be more a primary decision maker, so it again reinforces patriarchal knowledge, and it ultimately limits women's autonomy to have their power in decision making. In the National Family Health Survey of 57% of women need permission for healthcare. So here the word permission in itself, it seems to be a bit debatable, as everyone has rights to their own body, and to even ask permission for a healthcare describes how patriarchal most of the family structures are. Here we can also see the importance of cultural reinforcement and resistance. So media and a lot of traditional means uphold the norms. Here we can say media through advertisements, through a lot of soap operas, series, movies in itself. We can see how slightly patriarchal ideas is being intensified and the role of women is being reinforced all again. Here it ultimately brings in a limitation on the access of women to education, jobs, and even freedoms. So women to even think about education or to have pursue higher studies or pursue studies after uh, work or work after studies. So here there are lots of permission required from of the family structures for women to even have this freedom on decision making. So here the gender equality itself faces societal resistance from the own society itself, even where we can see as an act of love, we can listen how even our mothers sometimes, even if we have to go late night, would be like, you're not supposed to go out, it won't be safe. So here again there is a societal resistance to the own family structures in itself, and it hinders having gender equality, and thus there is a lot of slow changes. So according to the labor force periodical survey of 2022, here only 37% of women are there in the workforce. So remember how the workforce in itself is divided into rural, urban, and how the rural, urban in itself is divided into different types of employments. For example, you can say self-employment, we can say casual workers, we can say migrant workers, we can say regular workers. So imagine the share of percentage of women here, it would be even very lesser than this huge number. So here 37% can be seen as a huge number, but when we get into different sectors and different types of employments, we can see how the number would be degrading in comparison with the men. Now looking into the factor of unpaid domestic work, here according to the National Statistical Survey Office, sorry, National Survey Statistical Office of 2019, where women are known to have 7.2 hours in a day. They would be working for the domestic worker, and men would be providing only 2.8 hours per day. So here we can see how this stands as a unpaid domestic work by the women. So all of these reports, the report of labor force periodical survey is from the National Statistical Office, which comes under the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now looking into other factors, according to the UN Women 2022, according to the report, only 3.1% of women of India contribute to the GDP. So this we can see how it shows the working labor of women and how rest of the women are part of the domestic work, if we can take it, and how such domestic work is being seen as unpaid and undervalued. Here employed women do 6 times more unpaid care work than men. According to the economic survey of 2022, it include in the economic metrics. So here the economic survey emphasized on including the care work done by women, which should be included in the economic metrics as well. So here girls who are aged from 6 to 17 are more time in the unpaid domestic work than the boys, so it affects education, and there is clear discrimination even at the smallest of the ages. It's not just about aged women. Now looking into the power dynamics in families, so here there are a lot of patriarchal values which have been followed out. Even still, I can take a millions of example before coming to work where I had to face a lot of patriarchal ideologies. So for example, if today I was supposed to go on my bike, but I felt to be very unsafe because of the traffic and the men around in the traffic and in the roads who won't be driving safely. So I was considered to take an auto rather than me driving and coming to my own work in itself. So there are a lot of patriarchal values which are very intricate in our daily routine and in our daily languages. And here, because of that, we can see how the autonomy plays a role. Here men control a lot of finances and decision. Here we all know how it's more than our mothers, it would be more than our fathers would be in responsibility of the bank accounts and about the money rotation in their own house in itself. Here, according to the National Family Health Survey of 5, only 42% of women can make independent financial decisions, and the financial independence, it ultimately determines one's own authority. So we all know how we all are thriving for a job to have a security in our life. So we all know how important financial independence is, and especially for the women of this generation. Now looking into the inheritance, we all know how there are inheritance biases which restricts the property rights of women in itself. And looking into the domestic violence, here the National Crime Records Bureau of 2022 recorded how 31% crimes were against women are under domestic violence. So we can see how power dynamics in families in itself include women in multi ways. Looking into work-life balance and gender disparity, we can take the idea of glass ceiling effect. So here it is nothing but it's a metaphorical understanding how often women in work positions, they are not made to climb up the social ladder, that is the work ladder, and they are often undervalued to be in the bottom position itself, and they are not allowed to grow in the higher position. So this is known as the glass ceiling effect, and how it is very much prevalent in workplaces. Next is looking global gender gap of report of 2023. Here India ranks among 146 in as 135 in their economic terms. So we can see how largely the role of women are there in the work progress and gender disparity. So here there is lack of flexible work for women, and a lot of debates or lack of discourses even when it comes to pregnancies and other maternal leaves. Look, also having very less child care responsibilities, and even we know that paternal leave is just a new ideology or a new act which is being followed. Now looking into dual burden and jobs and household duties. So here women, even if not the generation of us, but we have also seen the generation of parents where even if our mother would be working, they would be working in office, and at the same time they would be working in the home in itself. So even to cook, they would be doing their work in the office and then they would be going home, and both the children as well as the men of the family would be expecting the women to come and cook. So it's all of these patriarchal ideas are so prevalent in families itself. So there is dual burden where they are getting only paid for one job and they are not getting paid for the job which they are doing in the home. Now looking into social conditioning and gender sensitization, here we need to bring in educational reforms such as gender equality in the curriculum. For example, The NCERT 2023 have revised textbooks on bringing gender inclusivity. So bringing in media representation in positive portrayals, where the CBFC, that is this Central Bureau of Film Certification in 2023, have brought in gender sensitive content guidelines. Bringing in community engagement, challenging norms to challenge the norms. So without women having the womenhood team, I don't think a single woman can change the societal norms. And bringing in workplace training where there is inclusivity, and also policy advocacy where there is anti-discrimination laws in all of its places, that is the workplace, schools, colleges, and so on. So I asked these students to put in their recommendations or any series or films that they saw that the media representation of women were in a positive portrayals. And looking into ethics and social justice, here there need to be gender equality as it aligns with the idea of human dignity and ethics. So here people seeing women as women, first they need to address them as a other half, or as a person who's same of human, who's made with blood and bones. Now the idea of equity versus equality. So here, more than having equality on the first base, first we need to practice equity. So first we need to know what kind of changes need to be altered so that everyone is equal in the bar of equality. So we need to first see the equity measures. Next is access to justice, having, for example, fast track courts through the Nirbhaya fund. For example, here you can see 70% of case resolution is being practiced. And next is having inclusive policy making. Here we need to bring in idea of women and women participation. So instead of having men in the boardroom where it is only participation of men who are talking about women's inclusivity, rather than that, first we need to have women's participation in the men's boardroom to bring in changes about women inclusivity. So basically having a lot of member and representation of women, we can take for example in parliamentary in itself. So here we can see women reservation bill of 2023, here almost 33% of the seats are being allocated for women. And looking into the idea of corporate social responsibility, here ethical and gender balance policies is an utmost important. So of course difference has been made by having such article to read and having such theories to talk, but the real change would be made only if we practice it in our daily routine. So even any of you watching this video, you're going back home and just see for a fact that who would be leading the house at that moment, or who would be cooking for you at that moment, or who would be asking you about the day at that moment, and I give you 10% sure that it would be the women of the house. So once we have change here, I think the change would be here automatically. So I'm just ending this article being very dramatic, but this is what the world is about. So let's make a change for today. So thank you and have a nice day for looking into the articles discussion. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to give a like, comment and share. And to further not to miss any other content, subscribe to our channel. Thank you and have a nice day.